Okay, hi there guys, my name is Chris and I'm going to show you how I pour together a 2-pot epoxy resin for a mold. So first here we have a silicone mold. This is a clamshell style because it's got 2 parts like a clamshell. And you can see here that I've got a saw blade sort of shape. And when you bring the 2 sides together, hopefully it makes a tight seal. This silicone mold, like any similar to it, will have some sort of entry point for pouring the resin into, and also a few smaller holes to let some gas escape if that's necessary. Okay, so I have built together plywood, this little stand. Because of the nature of where the hole is, I need this to stand upright. There it is. So I'm going to place it in between these 2 pieces of plywood and pinch it together a little bit with these clamps so it holds in place. And I don't want to pinch it too tightly because I can actually deform the silicone mold and that will cause the casting to be distorted. So I don't want that. I also have a couple of random ice cube trays made out of silicone that I'm going to pour the extra resin into. Okay, so I've had that all set. About 10 minutes ago, I prepared the surface with this releasing agent, which is just a spray that you spray on the surface of it, and you just do a quick shh, shh, shh sort of spray. And also about 10 minutes ago, I have shooken up the 2 parts of this 2-part epoxy. So I have part A and part B. Alone, they're pretty innocuous, but when you mix them together, it forms a chemical reaction. It's exothermic, so it does set off some dangerous fumes, so I'm going to wear a mask. So let's find my mask. Here we are. I've also got this funnel here, which I'm going to stick there in a moment. And I've got my mixing container, which I already know how much I'm going to mix of each part in. This particular resin is a 50-50 mix, so I mix both parts the same amount. And also nearby, I should have my stirring stick, so I can be ready to stir it. Okay, let's get the mask on. Here we go.
Okay, great. I'm going to put on some goggles here too to protect my eyes just from splash. We're working with a small amount here, so it's probably safe if I didn't, but safety first, just in case. Okay, also I put on these gloves. And I found a handy tip is if your hands are a little sweaty or damp and it's difficult to put these on, coat your hands in a little bit of cornstarch. So every resin mixture is going to be a little bit different, but this particular resin mix has a 3-minute pot time, which means I have about 3 minutes to stir it before the chemical reaction starts to occur. At that point, I need to have already poured it into my mold, or else my casting won't work out. I found through experimenting with this, it's actually much less than 3 minutes, so I have about 15 to 20 seconds to stir it before I need to start pouring it into the mold. So let's get started. So first I'll do my part A, and I'm going to put in 2 ounces. And I'll pour it very gently in there. There's about 2 ounces. Part B, as soon as this liquid touches that liquid, the counter starts, so I need to work quickly. Okay. And I'm going to stir this. Be sure to stir it thoroughly. I'm even scraping the sides of the container and scraping the bottom of the container. I'm just really making sure I get a proper mixture. As I said before, this is exothermic, so it's actually going to start heating up when it starts to cure. I can already feel it getting a little warm now, so I need to work quickly. I'm going to stick this in here and pour this. I'm going to pour a little at a time. This particular mold has some really challenging curves to it. So some molds you might be able to just pour it straight down and have no problem. This one I need to swirl it around a bit to make sure to get those strange curvatures, because we're just working with gravity here, so I need to cheat the gravity a little bit by swirling it around. And I'm just going to make sure there's no air bubbles in here. I'm going to bounce it around a little bit. And hopefully that will touch all the sides, all the parts of the inside of the mold, and we'll get a proper casting. So I do have a little bit left over here. I'm going to pour some into this section, which I already poured from the last pour. And I'm just going to do a nice, even, gentle pour. This is really starting to get hot, so it's going to start to get sludgy very quickly here. And I'm just going to pour as much as I can until I'm just about done with the resin. Yeah, it's already getting sludgy. It's starting to get a little bit thicker. And we'll stop there. Now if you keep your eyes on this mold here, you'll be able to see it actually start to change color. So you can see it right there forming right before your very eyes, which is very cool. You can see this one's already clouded up quite a bit. There we go, there's the second one. And you can see the third one starting to do the same reaction as well. So that's pretty cool. And of course up in here you can see that color has already begun changing. Okay, great. So that's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to fully cure. When I come back out here then, I'll feel the molds, and if I still feel some heat coming from them, then I'll know that the chemical reaction is still occurring and I'll need to wait a little bit longer. So I'll see you in 10 minutes.
Okay, and we're back. It's been over 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes now, and we can see clearly that our molds have fully cured. There's no heat remaining, so we can demold these. And with silicone molds, you can pop them out pretty easily. Bend and stretch the molds if you have to. These little guys came out pretty well. That's pretty easy there. And okay, cool. So we got a couple little toys we can play with. And now let's take this apart and see how lucky we were with this particular casting. Now silicone molds only have a shelf life of so long. After they get used frequently, they start to break down a little bit and deteriorate. And that's what I found with this mold. And that's why not all the castings come through. Okay, so we got this. And I'm just going to take a little tool here and just break off a little bit to make it manageable. Okay, great. And moment of truth. Pry this apart. Okay, so far so good. Great, so I peel off. It's peeling off very easily because of the releasing agent that I sprayed on it. So again, that's very important to prep your work beforehand. And I just kind of squeeze this out of here. Great, excellent. As with any of them, I'll need to take a razor blade and sort of shave off all these extra little bits, which are essentially plastic now. Hardened resin is plastic. And then I'll sand it down as well. So yeah, I would say that that's a success. I hope you learned something from this video, and good luck with your own castings. Hi there, Chris again, giving you a quick resin pouring tip. So, as with many molds, there's a hole that you have to pour some resin in that is hardening very quickly, and the obvious thing is to use some sort of funnel. What I found, though, is difficulty in finding a funnel that will actually work. Typical funnels have an end that is too big or too thick to go in. I tried using a silicone funnel and cutting an end and twisting it around a little bit to squeeze it in there, but that didn't work as well either because it ended up leaking. You can use wax paper and just make a funnel that way, but when pouring multiple molds, it's not really that time effective to create a new funnel for every single mold that you pour. But I found a solution for you. This is a condiment dispenser, and I cut it like so, and this actually worked out perfectly. The tip is very narrow. It can go inside a smaller hole. It's also this flexible plastic. It's not going to crack, so when you're taking the leftover resin out of it, if you just bend the shape like this, the plastic resin will pop right out. You can even unscrew the cap so you can get any little fragments in there. But I've used this over and over dozens of times, and I haven't found the need to replace it or anything. This is the best tip that I can offer for you for pouring resin into small holes in your castings. You're welcome.